Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Sarah Worsey, and I am the Marketing Manager here at Sentia. Today's session revolves around an important announcement that IBM made earlier this year that made IBM Power clients running IBMi and AIX workloads very happy. In June 2019, IBM announced the IBM Power Virtual Server on IBM Cloud offering, a hybrid solution that essentially bridges the gap between IBM's Power technology and the cloud to deliver a cost-effective, self-managed, pay-as-you-use model. For years, those running AIX and IBMi workloads that wanted to expand the reach of their Power resources could not easily do so, and now they can. Today, we are going to hear more about this exciting offering. Joining us today, we have Paul Cudmore, Sentia's IBM Power Systems Specialist and Cloud Practice Lead, who will provide a brief intro to himself and to Sentia and talk a bit about our relationship with IBM. We will then hear from Dan Lewis, IBM's Cloud Solutions Architect, who will go into much greater detail of the offering itself. At the end of the session, we'll have some time for Q&A, but if you do have any questions throughout the session, please just type them into the chat room on the right-hand side of your GoToWebinar pane, and they will be addressed at the very end. With that said, I'd like to pass it over to Paul. Paul, over to you.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I'll start with a brief intro about myself. By the way, that's not me in the picture. I don't think anybody in IT is that happy. Anyway, so I've been working with Sentia for almost 10 years now, and I have over 30 years of experience working with IBM systems. For the last 25 years, I've been working on IBM Power systems in their various forms, all the way back to the R6000 days. I'm currently one of the IBM Power System Specialists at Sentia, and also the Cloud Practice Lead, which means I'm responsible for our cloud strategy and offerings. Enough about me, let's talk a bit about Sentia. So, Sentia is a Canadian IT solution provider based in Richmond Hill, and we offer data center infrastructure solutions, data storage, enterprise servers, networking, and data protection and cloud. Also related software for those offerings. We offer a full range of managed IT services and professional IT services. We're an IBM business partner for IBM Power and Storage solutions with customers across Canada and internationally. Now, a bit about this new offering, about the IBM Power on Cloud. I'm very excited about this offering because clients no longer have to choose between AIX and the cloud. Until now, if a client wanted to move their AIX workload into the cloud, they would have to abandon their investment in the platform and convert to a Linux-based solution or even Windows. Now, with the help of IBM's latest development and Sentia's expertise in implementing and deploying cloud solutions, we can deliver the best hybrid solution Power clients have been waiting for. As you will see in Dan's presentation, you can now get the same enterprise class platform that you have in your data center in the IBM Cloud. And when I say it's the same, it's actually the same. Servers, Power VM hypervisor, and fiber channel storage, all through the IBM Cloud portal. I don't want to steal any more of Dan's thunder, so I'll hand it over to him now, and he'll give you all the details.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul, and thank you everybody for joining us here today. My name is Dan Lewis. I'm a cloud architect with the IBM Cloud team. I've been working with IBM on and off for about 20 years, initially working on Power and RS6000 as a post-sales capacity, and then moved over to the x86 team where I've worked on post-sales and pre-sales, and now a cloud architect. Today I'm going to cover off a little bit about the Power offering, the latest announcement in the IBM Cloud, which we announced back in June. Initially, what I'll do is I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the IBM Cloud capabilities, the broader capabilities in the portfolio, and then we'll dive deeper into the Power offering, where I'll cover off the capabilities of the Power offering, walk through the roadmap, where we are today, where we're deployed today, and where we're deploying in the future. We'll get into pricing and how you can price this out, and then some common use cases and customer examples of recent workings with customers, and now they've since deployed in the Power in the cloud. We'll then get into networking and talk about how you can connect up to this offering, and then talk about data migration options. So let me spend a bit of time on the cloud and the rest of the offerings in addition to the Power offering. So we have in IBM Cloud over 190 services in cloud today from a cloud infrastructure perspective, and we're going to dive deeper on the Power offering. But just to talk about the broader capabilities of IBM Cloud, we've got bare metal servers, which provides key differentiator for IBM Cloud to essentially move any type of workload into cloud, in addition to a public and private cloud offering where you can choose to go single tenant and multi-tenant offerings. In addition to that, we have our peripherals that would go along with that, storage options, whether you want block storage, file storage. We've got our object storage, which is S3 based, with different ways to replicate that across multiple different data centers. We have our security and our networking options as well, if you want to go multi-tenant options, or our appliances where you deploy single tenant options. In addition to the infrastructure side, we've also got all the broader capabilities and services that you can leverage in IBM Cloud around our DevOps tooling, our container capability with OpenShift and Kubernetes. We've got a number of different database services that you can leverage, a number of APIs and artificial intelligence APIs that you can leverage, as well as a number of SaaS offerings in our Watson portfolio. So let me talk a little bit about some of the key differentiators on the infrastructure side. I talked a little bit about bare metal capability, and with our bare metal capability, this provides a dedicated single tenant capability to provision within hours, rented by the hour, rented by the month. It provides a key differentiator for IBM that allows customers to essentially move any type of workload into the cloud. And you may ask, why would I move into bare metal when I want to really move into public cloud? Bare metal really provides that capability to essentially move any other type of workload. And quite often when I'm working with customers, we find out that there's workloads that doesn't really fit in a VMware environment in cloud or in a public cloud offering. So bare metal provides that capability to move those workloads over. IBM Power is another key differentiator for IBM Cloud, and it's something that we've recently announced in the cloud, and we're going to spend some time to go deeper on this capability. Another key differentiator for IBM Cloud is HyperProtect services based on IBM Z hardware. IBM Cloud is the only cloud provider that supports HyperProtect services based on FIBS 142 certified hardware. VMware is another key differentiator. It's IBM Cloud has the broadest capability around VMware and different ways you can consume VMware in IBM Cloud, whether you want to use our automation with VMware or build out your own. Also, just recently in Barcelona, we announced another capability around VMware, public cloud on VMware. And the last one I want to highlight is our Kubernetes capability. So IBM Cloud does have the broad capability of supporting both Kubernetes as well as OpenShift on a managed cluster, already stood up, managed by IBM Cloud. You just worry about deploying your containers. So let me talk a little bit about our data centers before we move into the power discussion. We have over 60 locations around the world in over 19 countries. All of our data centers are interconnected with one another, so it allows our customers to traverse from data center to data center at no additional cost. So if you're working, for example, you have workload in Canada in one of our Canadian data centers, whether it be Toronto or Montreal, you can put workload in, say, Europe, Asia, Australia, and use the IBM Cloud backbone to communicate from data center to data center and not pay any additional bandwidth charges. Additionally, a lot of our services also come with bandwidth included. So yeah, it's very rare that you see much of an egress charge on an IBM Cloud bill, because a lot of those charges, a lot of that bandwidth capability is built into the charge of the service. You'll also notice that we've got on the bottom right-hand corner 6 different MZRs around the world, so multi-zone regions. And if you're not familiar with an MZR, an MZR is basically a collection of data centers in close enough proximity to have a less than 20 millisecond latency between them. It provides the IBM Cloud the ability to allow customers to deploy workloads and high availability across multiple data centers. We have 2 MZRs in the US, 2 MZRs in Europe. We have an MZR in Asia and an MZR down in Australia. And if you haven't heard, we also made an announcement last week at our Think, or 2 weeks ago at our Think conference, that we are investing into Canada an MZR as well. So in third quarter of next year, we will be announcing, or we will be putting up 2 additional data centers. So a total of 4 data centers in Canada. We'll have 3 data centers in Toronto and 1 data center in Montreal that will allow us to move the MZR capability into Canada. Also on this map, you'll notice that there's 3 green circles. Those are the data centers that we've currently deployed power in. So we have power in our Dallas data center today, as well as our Washington data center. And as of Tuesday, we've stood up a data center with power capability in our Frankfurt data center. Towards the end of this year, we'll stand up a secondary data center in Europe in Frankfurt as well. And then going into first half of next year, we'll see data centers going into London, Toronto, Sydney, and Tokyo. So we expect to have the power by late February, early March in Canada. And then into the second half of the year, we'll start deploying sister data centers in those countries as well. So a little bit further on the roadmap. So I talked about the data centers that we're currently in and the data centers that we're going to. Some other functionality that will be coming out this year and into next year. We'll have GRE tunneling capability into our power pods. We'll be able to do upgrades and downgrades between different storage tiers. Today, you can scale storage on the fly without having to take the system down, but this will allow you to actually go between different tiers of storage. And then in the first half of next year, we'll be doing things like streamlined DR and backup. We'll be providing all flash storage systems with our Flash 9150 system in all the power pods. Linux on Power will be supported into next year as well. And then we'll also be able to do volume level snapshots. So let me get into a little bit of the Power offering. The Power offering is an LPAR as a service. So think of it as a public cloud, just like you would deploy your x86 virtual machines today into a public cloud. This is essentially the same concept. Here you're deploying IBMi or AIX on Power systems. You rent by the hour, so you pay as you use, and we'll talk about how this is billed later on. The systems that we're deploying in our Power Pods today are the S922 and the E880, so Power 9 as well as Power 8. And then going forward in future data centers, as well as the data centers we have up today, we'll be retrofitting them with the E980 as well. So once you've chosen the system you want to deploy on, you get into the granular configuration of deploying your LPARs. This is where you'll choose how many cores you want, and we can go as low as 0.25 cores, as high as 154 cores. You can choose to go dedicated cores or shared cores. Dedicated would be a minimum of a full core. A shared core will allow you to do fraction of cores. And then from a memory standpoint, you can do anywhere from 8 gig to 64 gig today per core. And that is actually going to be moved out to allow above 64 gig in a couple weeks. So we're going to provide that ability to go above 64 gig per core in about 2 weeks time frame. The storage in the back end is IBM StoreWise V7000. It's fiber channel attached, and you can choose to deploy your storage on Tier 3 spinning disk, as well as Tier 1 SSD disk. In addition to that, as I said before, we'll be deploying the 9150 flash systems in our Power Pods as well, which will allow Tier 3 SSD disk, as well as Tier 1 SSD FCM modules. In addition to the storage, you can do 10 gig, a minimum of 10 gig LUNs all the way up to 2 terabytes, and you can assign multiple LUNs to an LPAR. You can also share those LUNs to multiple LPARs at the same time as well. And from a networking perspective, you can do public access as well as private access. Private access is going to give you access to all of the other many services that IBM Cloud can offer. From a bandwidth perspective, there is no charge for bandwidth, so egress charges, you don't have any of those on the public side. And then from the OS perspective, we are supporting the latest version and one version back. So we do provide the support with the LPAR. Optionally, you can bring your own image. So if you want to bring in an older version, you can do that. The caveat to that is it has to be supported on the model of server that you're deploying the LPAR on. In addition to that, IBM does not provide support on bringing your own image. We are only providing support on the versions that we deploy natively as part of the LPAR. This here lists all of the power features, and this presentation will be made available to everybody, but I want to just highlight some of the capabilities that we can do here. The ability to provide SSH keys as part of the deployment to lock down the security right from the beginning. The ability to modify your virtual machine, your LPAR on the fly, to add additional cores, add additional memory and storage, which is great for things like disaster recovery, being able to burst up and burst down. The ability to launch a console in the web portal, full function GUI, CLI, and REST API, all of the functions that you can do through the cloud portal, you can do through our REST API. You can also capture a virtual machine. So once you've deployed an LPAR in the IBM Cloud, you can go in and capture a VM and put that in your image repository to use as a backup or to use to deploy other LPARs going forward. From a pricing structure, so how we price this is by the hour. So when you go into the portal does have a calculator there. You can also go through the process of building out an LPAR, and what you'll see is a monthly price given to you. That price, you then take that and divide it by 720, and that will give you the hourly price. So we build this by the hour, which is an advantage for customers. They can spin up an LPAR, use it for say 5 hours, power it down, and only pay for 5 hours. If the customer chooses to use this LPAR for the entire month, then they pay the monthly max price. So time for a poll question. So on your screen, you see a question: what operating systems are supported on the IBM Power and IBM Cloud offering? And your options are Red Hat, Linux, Windows, IBMi, and AIX. So I'll give you some time there to answer. All right, I think most people have answered. And the correct answer to that is IBMi and AIX. So we are supporting today IBMi and AIX, and as I said before, in the first quarter of next year, we will be announcing support for Linux. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk through some use cases for the Power offering. So some of the use cases we're going to go through are dev and test, application hosting, and disaster recovery. So let me talk a little bit about production. Using the IBM Cloud Power for production, the description here would be running an enterprise level workload in the IBM Cloud. Typical client needs here will be traditional cloud value, modernizing applications, leveraging cloud, the offering portfolio. Flexible option, be able to burst up, burst down, have that scalability, the elasticity of cloud. Looking to move to a consumption-based option, move to an OpEx option versus a CapEx option, moving away from having to invest into data centers. Examples of workloads here would be Oracle and DB2 workloads, custom enterprise applications, modernizing and extending the value of their enterprise systems to cloud-native applications, being able to tap into all of the other services that IBM Cloud can offer. Customers merging or acquiring businesses, and they need temporary capacity to move and merge multiple data centers together. So here's an example of a recent customer that did a POC and have since signed to go move their workloads into the cloud versus putting it on-prem. This is a global leader design manufacturer down in the US. Their portfolio consists of Behr paint, Delta, bath showers, stuff like that. Their business challenge was having to invest in new infrastructure, new applications, and they really didn't have the upfront funding for that. So rather than having to go out and purchase hardware, they decided to do a POC in the IBM Cloud, and then have since chosen to move their workload into the cloud. So the benefits here for them that they saw were OpEx versus CapEx, flexible bundle solution that includes x86 and Power. So they were not only using Power in IBM Cloud, they were also using our x86 capability with VMware. Clients didn't have to purchase their own data center as they moved to a cloud. The agility of the public cloud, being able to scale up, scale down, add additional LPARs when they want without having to go out and purchase additional hardware, as well as the risk mitigation. And you can see their solution description in the middle there. It was 49 P9 cores, 2 terabytes of memory, and as I said before, they were also doing connectivity to our x86 capabilities in IBM Cloud as well. Another use case is development and test. This is the ability to deploy sandboxes, to test applications, And the nice key benefit of doing dev and test in IBM Cloud is it's very easy to go up and deploy an LPAR when you need it to do your testing. Once you're done your testing, you then can collapse that environment and stop paying for it. Typical client needs here are, risk adverse. They benefit from having a remote environment versus having to do their testing on their infrastructure on-prem. Temporary need for system and resources. Consumption model using an OpEx versus a CapEx, and evaluate the plan and test next generation hardware, such as, for example, a new operating system version comes out, they can test that in the cloud before they roll over to production. Examples of this are looking for temporary isolated infrastructure for application testing, test hardware before it refresh. So new hardware, new power hardware comes out, you can test that in the IBM Cloud. And then if you decide you want to leave it in the cloud, you can leave it there, or you can purchase your hardware for on-prem once you've satisfied that the refresh will work for your applications. Testing complicated or large architectural changes, you can test those before deploying. And then also an initial step into the hybrid cloud journey. Before you actually invest and move your production workloads, you can test it in the cloud before moving over. And the last one I want to cover off is disaster recovery. Disaster recovery, a key advantage of using cloud for disaster recovery is that ability to run your environment, shrink your LPARs down just enough to handle the replication into the IBM Cloud. And then once you have to fail over, the IBM Cloud provides that elasticity to be able to scale up those LPARs and fill your workload over. So if we look at typical client needs here, running mission critical power environment with the need of a DR solution to raise security and reliability without having to invest into another data center. Looking for a DR solution in a different geo, again, not having to go and find that data center in a different geo and manage those data centers. And a first step into leveraging the IBM Cloud prior to committing an end-to-end mission critical application for production in the IBM Cloud. Another customer example of this is another recent POC that we did with a customer in the US. This is American Furniture Store that is in Florida. They have stores across the US. Their business challenge was in recent hurricanes in the south. They decided that they needed to mitigate some of that risk, and they also wanted to get out of the data center business, owning the data centers. So they decided to look at the IBM Power and Cloud for a DR first strategy. So look at deploying their DR into a cloud environment, into a data center outside of the hurricane zone. And then eventually what they'll do, because eventually they want to get out of the data center, owning the data centers, they'll move their production into another IBM Cloud data center. So they have since the POC, it was a successful POC, and they've started moving production or DR into the cloud. The benefits they saw out of this was OpEx again versus CapEx, the agility of a public cloud within a controlled and secured environment, the risk mitigation, disaster recovery, having that ability to have a DR without having to invest into another data center, and then the scalability, the ability to scale their LPARs, shrink them down while they're just doing the replication, and then burst them up when they do have to fail over, saving some significant costs on their side. So just to further discuss some of the DR capabilities, today we don't have DR software as part of an option when you build, but you can bring your own capabilities into the IBM Cloud. Later this year, we will announce something later this year, and into next year, we'll announce something around Power HA. But initially, you have the option to bring your Power HA licensing into the cloud. If you're using Oracle and you want to use Oracle Data Guard, I recently did a POC with a customer on Oracle Data Guard where we were using that to replicate data. DB2, Mimix, there's a number of softwares out there that you can leverage. And if you leverage some of these softwares today on-prem to replicate into a DR, you can use the same software as in the IBM Cloud as well. So connecting up to the IBM Cloud, there's a number of different ways you can connect up, whether you want to use a VPN or do a direct link. Here's a number of different direct links that you can leverage, whether it's Connect or Exchange. And these are very similar to, for example, if you're an Azure customer and you use ExpressRoute, we have the same Connect capability through Bell with our Connect. We have a number of partners that you can leverage to get access to a direct link into the IBM Cloud. We also have a dedicated link. If you're already in some of these POPs that we are in, you can do a direct link right from your cage into our cage. So once you've decided to move your workloads into the IBM Cloud, how do you get your data into the cloud? We have a number of migration options. We have our DTS service, our cloud transfer service. The DTS service is a free service. You ship your own device in, we mount it for you and make it available in the IBM Cloud. So that's one way of doing it. We also have something called an MDMS, a mass storage migration service, where we ship out a device to your data center. It's a full secure shipping to your location. The device itself is secure and encrypted, and you put your data onto this device, ship it back to the data center, and then we mount that data into an object bucket for you. These devices never leave a country. They're very secure, and we can, once we mount it in the country of the destination, mount it in the country that you order it from, you then can transfer it to any destination across our backbone to any of the data centers around the world. In addition to that, you can use any of the replication capabilities. So if you're a Mimix customer or doing Oracle Data Guard, you can leverage that as well to replicate data into the IBM Cloud. So here's an example. This is the IBMi example. So this is a customer looking to use the MDMS device. They would order the MDMS device. We would ship that out to their site. They could use BRMS to back up their data to the MDMS device, and then ship it back to the cloud data center, where we would dump that data in an object bucket, and you could deploy your LPARs from in the cloud. You then could use BRMS on site to replicate the differential to the LPAR. So that's one way of doing it, and there's other ways we could do it as well. So I just want to highlight some promotions that we have currently with IBM Cloud. So there's a number of promotions listed on the screen. One in the bottom left-hand corner I want to highlight is the Power. This is available to the end of this year. It's $20,000 in credits for 2 months. It also supplies expert services to move your workloads into the IBM Cloud. So that's something, if you sign up for this year, you can get access to this promote. And the other thing I want to highlight, my last screen here I want to highlight with you is another offering we just announced recently. So on the left side is the IBM Power Systems Virtual Server capability that we talked about already. On the right side, the green highlight there, this is another Power offering we announced. It is in early beta right now. It hasn't officially GA'd, but this is the capability of deploying Linux on Power. So Linux on Power is going to be available by the end of this year in our VPC space. So our virtual private cloud space, which is across our MZRs. Initially, this will be available in Dallas. It will go across all of the MZRs, and eventually we'll see it in Canada when we have our MZR next year. This provides the capability of deploying Linux on Power with a KVM-based hypervisor. It provides the capability of also supporting GPUs, NVIDIA V100 GPUs, and these AC922 support the NVLink 2.0. So very fast bandwidth between your memory subsystem, your processor subsystem to the GPUs themselves. So if you're looking at doing services around or applications around artificial intelligence and stuff like that, this is a great option to deploy those workloads on. So by the end of this year, we'll have the capability of deploying Power in a classic type environment with AIX and IBMi. We'll also have this capability in our VPC space, in our MZRs, deploy Linux on Power.
Okay, so before we wrap up the session, thank you very much, Dan. We just want to highlight some of the key benefits of going through a partner like Sentia for your IBM Cloud migration and deployment needs. So clients can take advantage of Sentia's deep in-house knowledge and expertise of the IBM Power Systems family, and we can also help make the transition to the cloud as smooth as possible by overseeing the full end-to-end process of deployment, migration, and management of the solution. We can help current customers migrate their existing workloads to the cloud or assist in the implementation of new workloads. We can help facilitate proof of concepts to determine feasibility of migrating your current workloads to the cloud. And after seeing Dan's presentation, one of the most compelling use cases for IBM Power Cloud is a DR for IBMi and AIX. So clients can no longer need to maintain a second data center with idle equipment or negotiate expensive contracts with hosting providers. Using the OS-based replication that Dan mentioned allows us to maintain up-to-date copies of your data and then activate it if the need arises. A real world example of how this cloud is being used, working with a customer right now that needs to test AIX TL upgrades on a critical Power HA cluster. They don't have the resources for a permanent test cluster, so I created one in the cloud for them, and we're testing the upgrades there. And once that's done, we shut down the cloud resources, and we don't have to pay for it anymore. So please let us know if there's any opportunities for us to assist you with any of your cloud migrations for IBM Power. And with that, I think we'll take questions if there were any questions brought up.
Hi, everyone. If you do have any questions, now is the time to type them into the chat if you like. We'll just give it a minute.
I guess you were just that good, Dan. Yeah.
Okay, well, that concludes today's session. I do apologize again for the technical difficulties that we had earlier. On behalf of Paul, Dan, and myself, I'd like to thank you again for joining us today and taking the time out of your busy Q4 schedules. As you can see, our contact info is displayed here. If you do have any follow-up questions or a request for more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And the winner for the Amazon gift card will be drawn after the session and will be notified via email. Thank you very much again.